Okay, it seems like everyone's had lots to talk about. If I can get you to take your seats again, please. Now, our last but definitely not our least speaker of the day, we've been talking about RA and crossovers and services all day today. Our last speaker this afternoon is Judy Atkinson from Coffs Harbour, and I think she's probably going to give you lots of information you've been waiting to hear as she talks about the swag of ideas for children's and teens with Readers Advisory. So, welcome, Judy.
Just the arrow? Yes. Thanks, everybody. And I'd like to thank the Readers Advisory Working Group for the opportunity to participate in the seminar today and to be here with you all, because it's been very exciting. And there's certainly crossover amongst what we've talked about. So we're all about reinforcing ideas. And my idea of asking you what was the first book you had owned was the fact that most of us didn't actually buy or choose our first book ourselves. It was maybe a gift, present from a friend, a parent, and that whole concept of third-party RA is really vital, because a lot of the time when we're talking children or young adults, somebody else is doing the buying and the procuring. We're not the ones who are selecting. So just keep that in mind when next you have somebody come to ask you a question about a book for them. It might not be for, it might be for somebody else. So why your Shirley? Well, we're talking about discovering Westerns being the focus for the seminar, and the concept of the Australian Western came up in conversation. And with all, what is an Australian? Which are the Australian Westerns? What are those we think of? And Darcy Nyland's 1955 novel was what came up to my mind. It's about somebody exploring the frontier. It's about going off in solitude. There's a burden component, and it's a journey. And so that's something that we're all aware of and see that happening all the time. Regarding the Shirley, Darcy Nyland said, it's a biblical truth that all men have burdens. This is the simple story of a man with a burden, a swagman with his swag, or Shirley, which in this case happens to be a child. I've often thought that if all burdens were examined, they would be found to be like a swagman's Shirley, not only a responsibility, a heavy load, but a shelter, a castle, and sometimes a necessity. And that's what we're like when we describe our adventures into quality reader services, when the interaction involves children and their parents and the library staff. We've got a responsibility to the young reader. We shoulder a heavy load. We have our wealth of knowledge and our experience and the processes that we've developed. We're a shelter to the time-poor parent who charges into the library and wants a book now at 2.5 minutes to 6. And we're a castle full of stories, and of course, we provide a necessity. So the Children's Services staff from the North East Zone meet annually to share ideas, and we all solve each other's problems as well. We've all got a solution. And we've been doing this for 10 years now, and last year our focus was on youth, and we discussed at length the opportunities we face in addressing YA-RA needs and how we can best service that part of our clientele. So what I'd like to share with you today has stemmed from that meeting and the combination of ideas that came through that from all those contributing people. So there they all are. We were very good librarians. We all sat the same way. So why are we bothering to do all this? Well, the New South Wales Public Libraries Network is wide-reaching and diverse. We provide an array of services and programs to support our readers. And reading for pleasure and empowerment is a service focus. And this graphic from the Reading Agency shows the sphere of influence we're associated with and the influences that we take the responsibility for in our communities. There's growing evidence relates that outcomes are much further than just literacy. We're improving both personal and social outcomes. So what are we trying to provide? Well, I'm sure you've all had a customer come back to the library with a book and say, oh, I just couldn't get into this book. It was, I didn't like it. And they head off to the shelves to pick up a book from their favourite author or their favourite topic. And so they go straight back into their comfort zone. For a lot of young people, they haven't established that comfort zone yet. It's not easy for them to do. So they become discouraged because the opportunity isn't there to make another selection because they're just not sure where to go. And their reading journey can be stopped right there. They've lost that progress that they were on. So, but there's many great books, but not everyone wants to read them all. And if a book doesn't resonate with us, if we struggle to read it or we just decide not to bother, then we really need to have a choice. And our young readers also need that choice. When we're selecting reading material for young readers, it needs to be pitched correctly. And there's a degree of choice and control over the material. When there's a degree of choice and control, the child is more connected with the story. They're motivated. They see gratification in what they've received, and the outcomes are much more improved. Reading becomes enjoyable. If a book's something we can get excited about and we can become enthused, we want more. Jackie French is famously known as saying to children, if a book is boring, put it down and get another one. And that's what we need to be aware of too. You don't have to finish a book. You know, if it's no good, select another. And there's such a wide variety of resources and books out there. There's one for everybody. We've just got to find that magic one. So providing suitable resources in a variety of formats also caters for different needs. And we've talked about that earlier today with comics and different e-books, video services that provide us a visual story. That suits lots of our readers too. It expands their reading selection, and they can experience different situations in the safety of a book. It also helps children develop an understanding of different character traits. And by reading what they've discovered, they develop their own Magnificent Seven. They develop their creativity, their curiosity, their imagination, their literacy skills. They improve their knowledge. They improve their problem-solving skills, and they gain in self-confidence. And they're all attributes that help children develop and become confident in their own abilities. So while we're thinking of RA as a separate library service, answering RA requests is very much a specific reference interview, and we've touched on this earlier today too. Good questioning techniques will assist you in drawing out the key elements to determine what the reader actually wants. And I like this graphic because there's a bit of questioning going on there between the two people, different ages, different expectations. They're not on the same wavelength perhaps, and that's something we need to deal with when we're faced with parents coming into the library as well. And of course the RefX Wiki has lots of tips as part of it's a comprehensive training package, and it can be easily filtered out to colleagues to help them develop their own skills. So who is selecting the story? Is it a parent that's come along with a list of ideas from the children? Is it the choice being made by the parent on the child's behalf? Also, who is going to read the story? Is it to be a shared experience, a read aloud, joining together as one to read the story? Is it the basis for a book club or a discussion? Or is it for classroom reading? These limitations make a difference as to what we select. So the parent comes in with particular needs. The child, if they're present at the time, have their own particular needs, and we need to marry the two together. There's other influence as well to do with why they're borrowing the book or why they're looking for something to read. So it's important to take into account those different requirements. So we've got a responsibility to meet both those two different needs of the parent or the third party, not necessarily a parent, maybe a teacher getting books for children, or the child itself. So we need to establish a culture of shared responsibility and inclusion and evaluate the book in partnership with the parent and promote discussion. This will lead to an increase in successful outcomes by using staff knowledge to a maximum effect. It's important to understand that each component of what the partnership has to offer. We need to explore what the reader wants and what the book has to offer, and they need to marry up. So if it's horses for courses, the reader and the story have to sit comfortably together. The image I have here, I can just picture if Tonto and the Lone Ranger swapped horses, it just really wouldn't look right. So we need to have the best fit and be consistent with what we're doing. And I'd like to an anecdote about the role of the large print Western in children's fiction reading. A good old-fashioned Western helped develop a lifelong love of reading. How many children have asked to dress up as Louis L'Amour for the Book Week parade at primary school? Well, I know of at least one. A young reader who lacked in confidence in reading, and so for fear of getting the words wrong, wouldn't read any books, wouldn't read out loud, wouldn't let anyone else hear him read, until along came the Louis L'Amour in large print from the adult section of the library. He felt comfortable reading the book because the print was larger. He could understand the plot, well, because there was a bit of a familiarity about black hat, bad guy, white hat, good guy. His self-esteem rose significantly because he was reading from the adult section of the library, and by broadening the approach, we were able to find a choice of book that suited his needs. And we've often got to do that, think outside the boundaries that the library shelving provides. We often take a child to the books that are geared for that age, but that's not necessarily where that child's fitting at the time. So this is just one example of the elements that come into play when we're providing suitable resources for young readers. The decisions influenced by their reading ability, their reading behaviour, what they, if they're still going, oh no, I just read picture books, or I've come to get a chapter book, that behaviour that they're expressing, it guides where we go. And their motivation. Do they really want to read a book, or are they getting the book because somebody else told them it was going to be good? In many cases, these components are all wrapped up in a cloak of third-party procurement. So it's up to us to develop our knowledge and skills to provide a balanced approach to selecting the right reading material. Developing our own skills and knowledge leads us to achieve better outcomes for the children and the young adults who seek a suitable book. As Melanie mentioned earlier, it's our responsibility to be trained and to be proactive. This is an opportunity for me to remind you of all the ideas you either use all the time or have used in the past. And there are many ways to gather that relevant information. We've talked about different websites, different media, and how we share with colleagues. And everyone's got their favourite websites that they find easy to use. But I also want to mention that we can encourage parents in their role as readers' advisory components for their children to also use all those resources. We can share them on our websites, share them through our social media, so that the parents have the tools at their disposal to help them make a valid decision and use what we know to help the community at large. So I will just now go through a list of different ideas that have come to fore, mostly from the discussion we had at the Zone Children's Services meeting. And they're mostly just examples of the different types of things you can do. And there's certainly many more, and there's certainly ones that you will find suit your needs completely. So things like author websites. This is John Flanagan's Ranger's Apprentice website, but you can benefit from connecting with authors. They often have different aspects that they share, and they often are quite happy to have contact from the young readers as well, so the reader feels connected to the story and the author. Various awards lists, such as this list from YALSA. It includes professional tools, so don't feel limited by having to just stay in one place to do your learning. And there's a huge collective of information available in this sort of site. Blogs, such as Read Alert from the Youth Literature blog from State Library Victoria. As the headings indicate on this page, there's opportunities to learn and explore, and subscribing to different sites gives you a feed through of current ideas and trends as well. And for the young reader or people assisting young readers, there's blogs such as the Book Chook that has reviews and suggestions and ideas about how to connect with young readers and help them develop their early literacy skills. There's familiar sites such as Goodreads, and if you go into Goodreads and try and filter the lists, putting in teens, youth, teenagers, YA, young readers, you'll get different lists and different combinations all the time. So don't be limited by one term. Swap the terms around and see what comes out at the other end, because it can be quite varied. And as you know, with the library catalogue, it just depends where those terms have come from as to how effective it is. There's also the genre lists that you can filter through from Goodreads, and they're good to use when you're putting together your own reading lists for customers. Inside a Dog, an amazing website from the State Library of Victoria and the home of the Inky Awards. It has an array of information. There's usually a writer in residence each month. Young adults can contribute their reviews to the page and see what's been connected that way. And there'll also have information about children developing their own writing skills and how they can write. Thinking outside the public library domain, this is a shared information page from University of Sydney, where they're providing information to educators on how educators can support learning about reading. And this is the Discoveries component of the English syllabus. So think outside public libraries as well. There's other ways to go around it. Library websites. State Library of New South Wales provides access to both resources and networking opportunities through their information pages. And there is a specific page for youth services. So this could be a jumping off point to access other information as well. And everybody's own individual websites, don't forget that that's an opportunity to link out to customers and have a page that's designated to YA or children and use that as a point where they know they can connect to. This is from the Mid-North Coast Cooperative Library Services. Undertake research of your own. Read documents that are out there and available through databases, through ALIA, through connections that come through from e-lists, and develop your own knowledge base so you feel confident and comfortable with what you're sharing. Sites such as literature maps, and this was mentioned by Renee earlier today too. It's a handy way to see book authors that write in a similar fashion to others. I also found it handy when people come in and they go, oh, I want that book by that, that famous Australian author, the one, and you can't think of the name and you don't know the book. You can throw a few names in here and you'll get a whole list of names that the person can then pick on the one they want. You don't have to come up with that elusive name that you've sort of forgotten. So it's quite a good browsing tool as well. Make connections. Subscribe to e-lists like ALIA's e-list and the State Library Children's List, and keep informed. ALIA Weekly is also a newsletter that's free and available, even if you're not an ALIA member, so share that around. And join additional associations such as IFLA. IFLA has a section for children and YA, and the information in there is quite focused and directed at what you'll need to know and keeps you connected. Pinterest is a very useful tool for promoting books and reading lists and ideas for children and reading. There's all sorts of people subscribe, a lot of teachers, a lot of authors, other libraries, and you can browse through all the Pinterest pages and find all sorts of things, good ideas for promotion and display. And don't forget that you can suggest all these things to the parents. The parent is usually quite comfortable in searching through Pinterest for other things, so just suggest to them that use Pinterest to find books and sit with the child at home. They can be comfortable and look through the lists and pick the ideas together. So when the parent comes into the library at 5 to 6 and goes, oh, I need a book, but I don't know what, and his reading's really good, but they're not concerned about finding a particular book, then they can already decide at home in comfort and then come in and do it in one go. Publishers are very supportive, such as Random House. They'll give you information about authors, they provide posters for displays, and it's a good way to find out what's new and what's coming up because they're advertising the books that will be published. There's online communities such as readings. This will give you another opportunity to connect, and people can do this from home, and having links on your library website to these different avenues of information means people can access them easily, and it's not using up staff time if that's limited and you haven't got the staff available at the desk. And certainly now with RFID technology and self-service, a bit of the connection with families is lost because you don't always have a conversation at the desk. So we need other ways to filter that information out. And better reading is another one, helps keep you up to date. And of course the RefX training, and I've just highlighted there that there is a component in that RefX training that is specifically Readers Advisory. So have a look at that and see what you can glean from that, and passing that on to colleagues and encouraging each other to have a look at that is well worthwhile. So once all the learning has taken place and you've devoured all the information that you can, your swag is ready, and it's ready it's heavily loaded, it's a burden, and it's ready for you to use. So what are some of the things that you can do to promote better reading outcomes? And these ideas that came again from our zone meeting last October. Try interfiling the YA and the adult fiction. Make it a different avenue for people to find a resource. And it also gets parents maybe reading the YA books that they will then suggest to their older children. Use ebooks as a hook. A lot of children come in with their own device ready to read. So use the ebooks, get them involved, get them to be a reader, and then you can span that out to the print collection or the graphic novels or whatever else you have available. But use the ebooks as a hook because it's something they feel is up to date, modern, and what they should be doing, not sitting reading a book. Build staff reader relationships. It's really important that you all can get on and you have a conversation and make things work. It's no good if somebody's hamstrung. Use specific genre lists, be specific to YA, and we had different examples of that earlier, how we can tailor our genre lists to meet the needs of our particular community. So talk to your community and see what they need. This is just a series list where often we'll come in and say, oh, I want a particular series, so we can share that directly. Use displays to get people in, have something that's eye-catching and promote the books. It's no good having the display if it doesn't promote the books as well. So it's just the hook, not the means to an end. Get feedback and evaluate what you're doing and use the information you get back to guide what you do. It's no point always having a particular display on a particular day of the week at 4 o'clock in the afternoon only to find out that that's soccer training day and no one's there at the library. So use the information and the feedback you get to make things work. Get to know your OPAC, get to know how to manipulate a search, how to use the different toolbars that are set up, the different pockets of links. There's a lot of visual information on the OPAC, and become familiar with that. So when parents are asking for assistance, you can give them the easiest way to use those tools that has all the information in there already to decide what they want to do. Create customer profiles. A lot of the library management systems have this opportunity. And like the Your Librarian form that was shown earlier, find out what people want, set up alert profiles and give them the information they want. You can put as many as you like in their membership, and it means they know what's coming about. They know what they can reserve, and then you can support them in that. Tap into different authors. The authors are very supportive. They want children to read their books, and they want to help you promote that. So use their skills and use their connections. Writing workshops are a fantastic way to get a young child to begin reading, because they'll then read the books because they know that author, they know them. So it's often a good stepping stone. Code it, be inventive, use QR codes, throw them on things, put them on your newsletters, put them on display in the library, and use them as an avenue for people to access a particular catalogue entry or a particular ebook. Create postcards to hand out, free ebooks. Well, they're free anyway, but it just highlights that aspect, and the QR code takes them straight to that entry in the ebook catalogue. But if the words free is on it, it seems to go better. And model good behaviours. If children and young adults are aware of the reading behaviours of the people they're in connection with, they see it as a good thing. So we can support that by talking to them about what we read, how we find out what stories there are available, and make those connections and model the behaviours. And I think that in this way too, encouraging parents to do the same is a good way to get that message across. So our burden, our load of resources and information and knowledge that we've developed, it becomes our benefit. At times, the knowledge we've developed will feel like a burden, assuredly, because every time a young adult comes into the library for advice about what to read, whoever serves them will say, "Young adult, I'll just get someone else because they know all about young adult," and the opportunity is lost for that person to share their knowledge. So it's important that we pass on the onus of discovering to our colleagues. Share with them what you've found out through today's terrific seminar, but encourage each other to learn and develop and use the skills and use them regularly. Like anything, if we don't keep things happening, then they fade away. So because if we use our tools regularly, we've got our swag open. And as you know, a swag when it's open is just a comfy blanket and we can all sit and read a book together. So thanks everybody for being able to be here today and share that information.
We've got a few minutes. So does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask? No? Not a question. Everyone wanted to talk about why you must have answered more.
They would do it all.
Thank you very, very much for that. Okay, that sort of brings us to the end, doesn't it, Ellen, for today? So I'd like to, yep, Melanie wants to say something. I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who presented today.
Yeah, well, that ties into what I wanted to say. I know for me as an audience member, my favourite part of it is the sessions that Helen organises, which are the 5-minute presentations. I know that people are terrified about getting up and doing public speaking. I would much rather be somewhere else, but it's a fantastic resource for us to do. And I know I kind of bullied a few people into doing them today. So I would like to say thank you for that because everybody was really good. But to encourage everybody to get up and share their ideas. As the steering group, we don't really pretend that we know anything more than anybody else in the room.
We just like to talk about it.
Yeah, we just like to talk. But you know, I love seeing what other people are doing in their libraries, and we really encourage you all to do that, to share and to talk about your ideas.
Yeah. Because it might only be one sentence that you say, and it will get a public library off and running with a whole heap of different stuff to do. It's really, really good.
Yeah, and the other thing we wanted to talk about is, as always, we'll be sending out evaluations. Please do fill them out because it makes a difference. And like we say, the reason today we talked about Westerns and literary fiction is because that's what people asked last time. So have a think about what sort of themes and topics you'd like to hear about because we'll talk about it. And also, in the nicest way, when you give your feedback, kind of maybe don't give feedback about lunch, or
my inability to use the computer.
Because
I accept it.
you know, really, lunch is free. The State Library have paid for it, and maybe more to be giving us feedback about things that we can work with and ideas that you'd like us to share with you. Because sometimes that just makes us feel bad when people give feedback about lunch instead of the work that we've done.
And as always, with our topic for the year, it is majority rule, so don't feel bad about whatever you want to suggest, just suggest it. And if you're in the majority, we'll do something better. Yeah. And other than that, I have to say thank you to Ellen. She's done a fantastic job putting this all together. Believe us, and we needed a little bit of a push in the right direction. It's been great. So thank you.
It's the wrong impression of, but thank you. I think it's very much a collaborative thing, and it does rely on a range of people carrying a load.
Yeah, it is collaborative, but you pull it all together. You really do. You get all this set up for us so we can sort of walk in and say, put this here, do that there, and yeah. So thank you to everybody else on the RA committee with me, working with me. We don't get to see each other very often, but I think we always have fun when we do. But it is a great thing that we do. So thank you.